Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Over Lunch and Happy New Year. We're so glad you're here. It is very frigid weather. Man, it's cold. But thank you for getting out and coming out and being here. So let me give you a couple announcements. Next month on February 5th, we're going to do something a little different. There's a documentary called 6888, and it's about the women wax who started in Britain and sort of male. And so I watched it the other day, and I just thought, that would be really cool to have for February. Not because it's not a book, but it's actually a documentary and with eyewitnesses. It's not the movie; it's a documentary with people who did it. So if the movie is coming, I guess Netflix or something. But this is the documentary with them talking about their grandparents and themselves and telling about it. And I would really like people to know about that if they don't ever watch the movie, they can see this. And so that's what we're gonna do. So come back next month, yeah. And then next week we're totally closed from the 13th to the 20th. Staff will be here. I have some people coming in to volunteer to help take books off the shelf and take the boxes up, and then we'll move the shelving and things. So that'll be Monday through Friday, and then hopefully we'll be done by Friday, and then Monday's Martin Luther King Day. And so I'm trying to save that day for staff, so we work really hard through the week and just kill ourselves and then have Monday off and then open back up on the 21st, which is a Tuesday. So we will not be answering the phone, we won't be answering emails. And if you wanted to bring a book back, you can send a book back through the drop, we'll take it. And we won't be doing checkouts. So just so we can all be very busy finishing up. Otherwise, we will get nothing done. Sorry. And then after that, of course, you saw the big metal frame coming into on the east side. That'll be our main entrance. So they're working on that now, and pretty soon we'll have the cement all done and the entrance and everything. So that'll change some of what it looks like. But next week really is painting and all kinds of stuff. We'll be doing, I think we'll be doing chocolate and all that jazz. I still have to check with one of the groups from CCC. I still have to check the day. I went ahead and put the announcement out because we haven't. I always hesitate on CCC because Friday is the day off. So if they decided they couldn't do it on Friday, maybe we do it on a Thursday or a Wednesday or something. But at least I'm hoping that it will go. I have emailed, I've called and done everything. They're just, they don't get started until the kids get back. And so they never give me a commitment until then. And we won't have our next time to advertise this until February. So I just thought, put that in the back of your mind. So when you see it, you say, oh yeah, I can do that. So we'll get some more information. March 5th, we have Daryl Henry is coming to Johnny Carson, the Magnificent. He's going to review the newest book by that. And so he's really good. And you haven't heard Daryl speak. He's really fun to have speak. And then on National Library Week, we do the second week of the month. Tuesday is to be determined. I'm looking for somebody specific. I want a guy. And I don't have any guys yet on the agenda for the week, so I want a guy. I can get one.
Does Sandy know about this?
Who?
Does Sandy know about this?
No. So anyway, so we'll work on that. And then I have Laura Jones from Oklahoma. She's coming in and talking about Song of a Wounded Heart. And then I have our favorite, Tara Schreier, our CCC librarian. She's doing The Anxious Generation, and she's read that book. She says, I really want to share this. So she'll be doing that. So we're doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday again. And then on Saturday, we're supposed to do the murder mystery. So we kind of changed that up, put the murder mystery on Saturday. That way we really have a huge week. And then just want you to know, our ESL class is still on Thursday nights, and Vi over here, who's our bookkeeper, is our ESL person. Vi. She teaches Spanish or English, and if you want to learn Spanish, sometimes you can come and learn Spanish. So she's really good at it. We have our youth activity center, and Chelsea is in charge. She's our new children's youth librarian, which is Anne Garrett. Garrett helps. those two wrangle the kids downstairs, and we've actually doubled the number of kids downstairs, so, I looked at the numbers from the year before, it's like, oh my God, we really did more than double the number of children downstairs in the basement at the youth activity center. So we actually got, some days we need 3 people, and we have another person that helps. But, so. Then remember Facebook, our library catalog, our website, if we're having weather, we'll always put that up if we're closed. And then remember digital ebooks by Libby and Sunflower. You can always get, so if you can't get in and get a book, you really need one, then you can use your digital ebook for reading next week. And then that's about it. Have I forgotten anything? I don't think so. Okay, let me invite Roxie to do her book, Historic Roadside, and I'm gonna plug her in so she can do her stuff.
That little Susie. Okay, we're good to go. Happy joy. Well, I'm Yonkey, obviously, and this is my book, Historic Kansas Roadsides. And let me see if I can get, you can see the screen. That work for everybody? So last year was the 150th anniversary of Home on the Range. And I did a little song and dance about the whole story about it. And then I was going to not sing Home on the Range. For this tour, people protested. You can't have a Kansas presentation without singing Home on the Range. Okay. Here we go. Oh, give me a home where the home the answer play. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all the day. So what's in Historic Kansas Roadsides? Well, of course, I have to talk about how we're flat or boring. But there are 80 communities on 12 road trips based on Kansas byways. And you got extra points if you're on National Historic Trail. And of course, places like Lawrence and Lecompton are not on a byway, neither is Wichita, other places, and you can't really talk about Kansas history without talking about Lawrence and Lecompton. One article per community, so that meant a lot of longest routes, 18 of Frontier of Freedom, which is what I think of as Kansas East Coast. And the shortest route is the Southeast and Route 66. No road trip without Route 66. Because of the whole one per community thing, some stories have unfolded in pieces. So I had to write by Lieutenant Colonel George Custer a whole lot, instead of just saying Custer. So today, of course, being in Northwest Kansas, we're going to talk about some of the Northwest Kansas states. And a lot of them involve Devil's Gap and the Hickory Breaks, which is very northwest Kansas. You have to want to go there. Don't go there if it's been wet or icy or anything else, because you won't get there or you won't get back. But it's beautiful. And there's reasons it was called Devil's Gap, because during the Indian Wars, the warriors would come up through Devil's Gap so they could hide and raid places. Julesburg especially has reasons to regret that that was there. So we're going to put the pieces together. We're going to talk about Forsyth Scouts in the Battle of Beecher Island and the Northern Cheyenne Exodus, both of which involve Northwest Kansas and spill over in eastern Colorado. So I'm hoping I can actually talk about Kansas and some of those border counties and get people across, because our story is also their story. And if they'll spend money in Kansas. So we're going to start in Lincoln in 1868. And this is the monument to those who fought in the Civil War and also fought to pacify Kansas, basically. And this is Thomas Alderdice. But Thomas is an interesting person. He actually came to Lincoln from Fort Leavenworth. He was stationed at Fort Leavenworth for a year, but he was hiding a secret. He was born in Philadelphia, and what a Philly boy was doing fighting for the Confederacy, I don't know, I haven't been able to figure that out, but he served with the 44th Mississippi Infantry and was captured at the Battle of Chickamauga. Now, of course, that connects to Colby, because you have Chickamauga Street, which we, of course, call Chick, because, you know. And I have read that some of the citizens of Colby wanted to change the town's name from Colby to Chickamauga. Aren't you glad they did it? No, he didn't tell anybody from Kansas that he had actually been a Confederate. He was a galvanized Yankee. So basically, he was imprisoned in Chicago. And you've heard about Andersonville, maybe. It was a southern prison. One of my relatives died there. But the northern prisons weren't much better. And so if you were desperate to get out, the opposing side would come and recruit out of prisons. And many of the people, of course, as soon as they got away from the prison, deserted and went home. But Alderdice stayed in his unit. One of his people who were also there was a man named John Daly. Daly died of typhus right after his enlistment expired at Fort Leavenworth. He reported sick 2 days before his enlistment expired and died shortly thereafter. He was married to Susanna, and Thomas married Susanna. So, of course, we were back on the frontier. Bleeding Kansas did not end with the Civil War. We bled for quite a while afterward. And there was a raid that came into Lincoln. The raiders staked 2 ladies out. The 2 ladies out on the left them to die. They were rescued. Some children actually were abandoned to die. And a man named Martin Hendrickson had this idea that he needed to go out and search for them, and he walked several miles and found them and rescued them and actually saved their lives. Of course, the people of Lincoln were not amused by this behavior, and the Forsyth Scouts started recruiting. The whole Forsyth Scout thing, we're not going to do the whole general infantry and cavalry tactics that we have before. We're going to do more like the natives. So they recruited scouts, and Alderdice and some other people from Lincoln to Fort Harbor. And then there were more recruits from Fort Hays. Now, Canopolis, if you go to Canopolis, it's interesting because here you have the guardhouse, which is a museum. And some of the houses, the buildings from the fort are still there, people live in them. Like, hey, I like that kind of recycling. So when Harker finally sold, was declared, we don't need you anymore, and they finally sold it, people from investors made the town of Canopolis, and they thought that they were going to wrest the state capital from Topeka and be the Kansas metropolis. Well, we see how well it happened. So Canopolis instead got the first state park. So here we have Fort Harker, 4 days, and they wander around up here, go down to Fort Wallace, then they chase the natives up here to Beecher Island, which was quite an unpleasant situation. You can see them there's this little island in the Rickery River. And here they are kind of huddled down in these pits. Forsyth was going to turn around because their supplies are getting perilously low, but he decided, no, we'll push forward one more day. And they ran into, here's their small contingent, and they ran into an overwhelming force. So up here on the hill are the Boyers families, and they're cheering and carrying on because they think they're going to win. But these guys managed to hold out for days. All they have to drink is nasty water out of the Rickery River, and they were shot. And one of the first people to die was the surgeon, of course, so there's no real medical help. Forsyth, the commander, is shot and he's nearly dead. So they realized, oh, well, we can't just stand here. We can't just be here. So they sent 4 people and 2 parties to Fort Wallace. Of course, there's no real maps, GPS, and these people had to escape via cover of night. 2 of them decided not to wear their boots because, they would look like moccasins. They would be able to be tracked. Well, they regretted that because they were full of cactus, my feet were full of cactus vines and everything. So one party got to Cheyenne Wells, Colorado, and discovered the stagecoach, rode the stage into Fort Wallace. And Fort Wallace, they simply stripped all of its troops and sent them 3 parties to the north. The second group came a couple days later to find, of course, here's the rescue party. They're on their way, and they were trying to guide them up. One of them went up through Bird City. You see the round hole campground north of Bird City. That was one of the places where they were. So finally they arrive, and Forsyth is pretty much just probably the next day he'd have been dead. But we can't, look injured to our buddies now, can we? Oh no. So Forsyth down in here sits up and kind of, and gets a book out like there's no big deal and whatever, and shakes his buddy's hand, and of course then they have to come. They brought up ambulances, and these poor guys are dragged back via ambulance to Fort Wallace. Can you imagine what that was like? Forsyth was pretty much out of commission for 2 years before he healed enough. Of course, this picture is in 1895, just a little bit late, And this is the obelisk at Beecher Island. And there's a list of all the soldiers who fought there. Alderdice is the top of the list. His brother-in-law, Levi Ziegler, Susanna's brother, is at the bottom. And then this is a monument to the 10th Cavalry, who were Black Buffalo soldiers, who came to rescue them. And I find it deeply ironic that the man who fought in the 44th Mississippi Infantry for the Confederacy to keep slavery alive was rescued by black soldiers. Which, speaking of, you're gonna watch the 6888. The 6888 is in my book. Their monument is there's a monument for the Circle of First at Leavenworth. And I learned after I read the book that the ladies involved in this 6888 was from Laredo. So Lewis Carpenter commanded the Buffalo Soldiers at this time. Come on, there we go. There's the Buffalo Soldiers insignia. And he received the Medal of Honor for his actions in Beecher Island and the Battle of Beaver Creek a few weeks later. Now, I think probably the real people who just earned the Medal of Honor were the black soldiers. But, you know, at least somebody was recognized for coming to their rescue. Now, I've thought of this many times. It's a good thing that all the Navys apparently were up there around Beecher Island because Fort Wallace had nobody down there to protect anybody. So we were pretty much open to invasion. So, continue with Alderdice. This is a mural at the museum in Lincoln. And this shows the raid in 1869. Came into Lincoln County. Thomas Alderdice had gone to, well, there were two stories on where he went. He went to Junction City to file for a land claim. Two, he went to Salina to get some supplies. Whichever one it was, his wife was left by herself. By this time, she had 4 children, one of them a babe in arms, and was pregnant with another. Plus, she had her children by her first husband. So when they knew that these raiders were coming, she and this lady who had one child fled to a creek where they would hide in the trees. Unfortunately, Alderdice had these little children with her. She's pregnant, and she couldn't run as fast as the other lady. So basically, she just kind of sat down by the creek and waited to see what would happen. She had to watch her children be murdered in front of her. They let her carry her baby for a time, but the baby was not very happy and she made too much noise, so killed the baby. And you can imagine what they did to those women. Well, Thomas came home to find his children laying in children's bodies, and his wife and little baby gone. And he was absolutely distraught. Searched for them, tracked them until he could not track them anymore. Went back to Fort Leavenworth to plead with the Irvin to send someone out to find her. And he actually even talked to George and Libby Custer. And Libby Custer wrote several books after her husband died, and she actually talks about him, doesn't mention him by name, but talks about how this distressed man came and told the story of what had happened to his wife. And please, please, please come and find her. Well, they did not find Suzanne Alderdice for weeks. Finally, they caught up to tall old Cheyennes around Sterling, Colorado. And at the point of victory, the women, native women, executed Alderdice, and tried to execute the lady who was with her, Maria White. So the soldiers, of course, were very upset by this. and they wrapped Susanna's body in the richest buffalo robe and painting that they could and buried her on site. Now, they don't know exactly where her grave is, but this is the marker there. And the incident lived on in popular culture because Buffalo Bill was one of the soldiers. And he would reenact this battle in his Wild West shows. And there he is executing Tall. Except that maybe the commander, Frank North, did the execution, or maybe one of the soldiers did it. Buffalo Bill was very good about publicity. So we're going to jump forward to the Northern Cheyenne Exodus, but first we have a prequel. This is a drawing of the Battle of Cheyenne Hole, or Sack Hole, done by, Street, his last name, I forget his first name. But anyway, he was a local historian and lived through the Northern Cheyenne Exodus. So it's kind of, the Cheyenne were entrapped in the Darlington Agency in Oklahoma, where they starved. And, all the working with the Indians was a license to steal, pretty much. So there was massive corruption. Okay, you just skim off the top and leave the Indians to starve, and no wonder they revolted. So they broke out, came up through Punish Woman's Fork in Scout City, and ended up camping along the middle fork of Sappa Creek around the current ghost town of Achilles in Rawlins County. So if you drive up 25, you'll see a sign for Achilles, and it's around it there. I was hoping to go to the battlefield when I went smoking Atwood, but we had a windstorm that day, and I just didn't think that was quite the time I wanted to be standing in the middle of a field. So that goes back on the bucket list, because you can understand a battlefield so much better when you've actually been there. Oh, hit the wrong button, sorry. But here is a picture of the battle, so you can see there's these holes. Now, being from Sherman County, there is a Sherman County connection to this. You've heard probably about the Kidder Massacre. So these buffalo hunters were camped at that site, and they were out hunting buffalo. When they came back, their camp had been looted. And they also found other dead buffalo hunters. Now, they could not ascertain which tribe had murdered the buffalo hunters. The tribes generally would mark their arrows in a certain way so that you would know who did what, but they could not figure that out. But the next Indians they saw were these Southern Cheyennes. And one of them especially wanted revenge for his fallen brother. So they joined forces with the soldiers, and the hunters came up over the hill, led by Joe Brown, who wanted revenge. Well, he joined his brother. Basically, it was a very confused situation. The Indians appeared to populate, try to come out, try to surrender. And no, didn't happen. And as you can see down there were 8 Medal of Honor recipients from this battle. However, back at this time, Medal of Honor was the only Medal for Valor there was. There wasn't a Bronze Star, there wasn't a Silver Star. So if you wanted to reward somebody for valor, you handed them a Medal of Honor. That 8 seems a little much for what was basically a massacre. So the Northern Cheyenne remembered this. And when they had enough of reservation life, they broke out too. So this is just south of Coldwater, Kansas, just over the line into Oklahoma. So they had, at this time, there was a large, they call it the Comanche cattle pool. So the whole idea was to fence this huge area and run your cattle. So that way you could keep out settlers, you could keep out Texas longhorns, whatever, and you could make your money that way. So these two guys were hauling salt up to their home base when the Northern Cheyenne caught them and killed them both, leaving their bodies out there to rot. And of course, they were later buried, and this is a cemetery where they now rest. Now, this is Buttermilk, Kansas, also in Comanche County. And then the road was, L. Frank Baum says that Dorothy was from Butterfield, Kansas. Well, there's either the Butterfield Trail or there's a Butterfield neighborhood at Topeka. Well, I don't think that Dorothy lived at Topeka. So maybe Baum meant buttermilk. So the soldiers were not really gung-ho to chase down these fleeing natives. Everybody knew they were being starved and maltreated in Darlington, and many people were embarrassed, including many of these soldiers, and they didn't really want to fight and possibly die for something unjust like this. But Colonel Lewis was commanding Fort Dodge, and he chased the Indians and caught them at Punishwoman's Fork, which is in the historic Lake Scott State Park. Well, it's nearby, Battle Canyon. And I was absolutely shocked to come here and actually see water. I've never seen water in Battle Canyon except for this one time. So I thought, what's going on here? It's weird. So you can see kind of in here where the warriors dug rifle pits to take pot shots at the approaching soldiers. So the soldiers besieged the natives, and so go down here, and you'll see that it would be the cave where the non-combatants stayed. And when I was at this, I couldn't even go in the cave because I had water in it. Never saw that. So imagine the soldiers up here and trying to clean out the natives. It wasn't going well. It was kind of a siege. And Colonel Lewis decided that he needed to encourage his men. And instead of staying down behind the fortifications that they'd thrown up, he decided to stand up. And the men were like, get down, and they're pulling him down. Boom, shot him right in the femoral artery. Bad. Well, Lewis doesn't die, right? Generally, if you get shot in the femoral artery, you're gone. But when they did the autopsy, he had a blood clot about like this long. So Major Bach now takes command because his boss is obviously not fit to command anybody. And night falls, and he decides that, the Indians aren't going to go anywhere. We can just sit here and we'll attack them in the morning. So they pull out of that cave and head on north. Oh no! And Bach got in a lot of trouble because he was not in any particular hurry to summon troops. He loaded up Lewis in an ambulance. Imagine, here we are back in the horrible ambulances going from Scott City to Fort Wallace. And of course, Lewis died on the way there. He was the last American soldier to die in battle in Kansas. What a lovely distinction that is. And he should have sent word to Fort Wallace via a messenger on a fast horse, but instead he just put his dispatch in with those slow moving wagons. So here we go. All across this railroad line, the soldiers are camped out trying to stop the natives before they get across, because we're going to push them back to the reservation. Now, look at it. In Waukene, everybody gets together to make a home guard so that if the natives show up here, we're going to drive them off. Well, Oberlin wasn't so prepared. So the natives go up through Logan County, cross the railroad. That's big boy figure to me. I don't know. And end up in Sheridan County. Right there. That is the trail that they have if you want to follow the last Indian raid. And this two people in Sheridan County died, were murdered, and other people from Sheridan County went up north to warn Oberlin and said, you better watch out because people are coming. Now, Bill Nye and Little Wolf were the leaders, and they're like, no, do not dally, do not kill anybody. We need to get through Kansas and get on the road so that we can get up before the soldiers catch us. But they remembered the Battle of Savile Hole. Now, none of these people had been there when that battle was fought, but we don't. That's the worst part about all of these wars, is the people who had nothing to do with it were usually the ones who got punished. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, and all the way down. Horrible, horrible atrocities. I'll spare you the details. But I wrote one of my first blog posts was about this battle and the aftermath. The Lang family was particularly hard hit. They were brand new settlers, so they really knew no one. Every one of the males was murdered. All the women, well, you can imagine what happened to the women. And they fled naked to the nearest neighbor who took them in. They were the first stones erected in the Oberlin Cemetery. And they're still there. On one of the anniversaries, the state and the city of Oberlin erected this obelisk. And I could never see it without feeling so sad. Because those people had nothing to do with any atrocity at all, they're just there. So this is Parker in Atwood, Rollins County. I don't know if it's still there or not. But in Rollins, they came over, violence went over into Rollins County. And some men actually sacrificed themselves to save their children. Went out to distract the Indians while their children escaped. And they were murdered. So several weeks later, some people were going from Eastern Rollins County into Atwood, and they came across an Indian boy, probably 12, 13 years old, who had been wounded in the battle and somehow had survived that long. And the two men argued about what they should do. Should we bring him in? Should we leave him? What should we do? Because if we bring him in, they'll think maybe we were accomplices. I don't know. Well, they left him. And the man who wanted to bring him in decided, I really feel bad about this. I'm going to go rescue this kid. Well, somebody else got there first. So I look back at our ancestors, this got to be kind of hard to read, but at times, because there's so much bleeding Kansas. If you want to drive Kansas roadsides, there's so much sadness and grief. But I also, with these people, you know, we survived. At first I was afraid I was petrified, but I survived. And, you know, our ancestors were tough. They survived having Jayhawkers and Border Ruffians fight. They survived Native American raiders. They survived the Dust Bowl. They survived places like sundown towns. They survived and survived and survived. And I remember used to talk about, oh, you don't want to go back to the good old days. I'm like, go ahead, Mom. I like this. Because we get to earn the fruits, we live on the fruits of their labors. Our ancestors came here to fight for freedom, to fight for a new life, to fight for prosperity. And a lot of them never saw it. Some years ago, Eric and I saw a video about the Dust Bowl. And they got this house from around Holyoke, I think. And they had this poor guy standing there while they raided a dust storm around him. And in about 10 minutes, you couldn't see a thing. They had to stop it because the poor guy could not breathe. He was suffocating in this. And I thought, you know what? My grandmother always used to talk about these things. Now she would put my aunts to bed. My mother was lucky. She was born in 39 and she escaped all this. But she put them to bed and she would soak cloth and drape it over their cribs so that they wouldn't get inhaled dust. And in the morning, they would be just saturated with dust. My great uncle died because he was a horse buyer and got caught out in a dust storm and died of pneumonia. And we have dust storms, but we don't know what theirs are like. We can't imagine, because thank God for conservation practices. So when you read the book, yes, there's a lot of unhappy stories in here. Thomas Alderdice eventually moved to Conway Springs, got remarried, and that's their 4 children. I don't think he ever confessed to being part of the Mississippi Infantry, because, you know, in Kansas that would have been most unpopular. But he outlived all but one of the people who were in Beach Island. Imagine what stories he would have been able to tell. Sorry about that. I forgot to silence my. So when you go outside today, feel proud. Our ancestors are heroes. They overcame. And I love stories of overcomers. And that's what we are. We shall overcome. We have overcome. And we still will have to overcome, because there's always some more obstacle you have to climb to be successful. But you look back at them and think, you know what? If you can survive what they survived and still go on, what does that say? That we can do it. Rosie the Riveter? Oh yeah. There's a section in that book that talks about the Battle of Kansas in World War II, where Ab Arnold, who was the general in charge of the Air Force, came to Kansas and basically said, I need you to do the impossible. We need these bombers by this impossible date. And we did it. There were mechanics standing outside in blizzards, literally building bombers, so we could end the war, saving who knows how many lives. For Kansans, we overcome. So yeah, like the song said, as there are plenty of discouraging words in this state, but the best words are yes, I can. And so those mornings when I get up and I think, well, I don't know about this. Like, look at yourself in the mirror. Yes, I can. If our state can survive the Dust Bowl, and we can survive. So, well, Medicine Lodge, there was Medicine Lodge is infamous for Carrie Nation, but there was also a man named Shoeless or Jerry Simpson, Sockless Jerry Simpson. So Simpson was, this was in populism era when the economy tanked. The only depression less, Great Depression was the only depression worse than this one. But think of 1890. Anyway, he was against this guy from Wichita who was pretty well off. And the Wichita guy said, well, you know, at least I wear socks. And Simpson said, well, you know, I'd rather not wear socks than wear your fancy hosiery. Words to that effect. And he got the name Sockless Joe Simpson, and he went to Congress instead. Does anyone have any questions now that once I start talking about Kansas, I have a hard time shutting up.
Are you aware that at Beecher Island, I don't know all the details, but there is controversy that was not the place that it was over on private property, just about a mile away.
So there was the flood of 35, I believe was the year, came down, of course, and took out that island. So nobody is absolutely sure now where it was. It might be where the obelisk and stuff is. It might be on private property. Nobody is really sure where it was because all the markers vanished. There was an obelisk there at the time, but that obelisk never was found. Now, my father-in-law says that before that flood, we had no trees. At least in Cheyenne County, there were no trees. But the flood brought down cottonwoods. And you know how cottonwoods are, you stick a branch in the ground and you water it and up comes a tree. And so that's where we got trees. But yes, there is a controversy as to where that thing actually was. Lyman Beecher was involved, not Lyman Beecher. Lyman, I'm getting him confused. So Lieutenant Beecher actually accompanied Lyman Kidder's dad to find his body and prove that it was Lyman Kidder. And a lot of people involved in the Kidder massacre died violently and quickly thereafter, including Fred Beecher. Any other questions? So these are my books. Unfortunately, I am out now with Midwest Road Trip Adventures. And they're over there. If you want to buy copies, I'll surely sell them to you. Any other questions? That's in Rollins County. Somewhere around, I think it was around Dell that this happened. But I wouldn't swear to that without looking it up again. Yeah, it's just a sad, but we also understand why these people were very, very angry.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed your time.
Thank you, and if you do need a speaker, please let me know.